Right. Hi, everyone. Anyone who doesn't already know me, I'm Lady Mari of Kilrock. I'm the Lockhart Kingdom Constable and a bit of a helium hand. So this is a class on volunteering in you, how to do it without burning yourself out. It's going to be run as a bit of a lecture from me first, and then we'll have a bit of a Q&A and some roundtable discussion questions. The volunteer handout is on the Service Symposium page for anyone who wants to bring it up. So here we go. So there's a lot of reasons for volunteering. There's wanting to give back to society because a lot of us were nerds who didn't really have a place until we found it. There's occasionally a feeling that no one else is able or willing to do a job, so someone has to do it, so you just put your hand up. I got into a lot of my officer positions that way. And for some of us who really felt the whole social isolation bit before we found the SCA, there's a bit of feeling like you need to earn the acceptance you found. That's a whole nother D&I talk, but it's occasionally a thing, and sometimes you just need to be told, we already love you, you don't need to earn our affection. Reasons for not volunteering. Sometimes it can feel like you're stepping on people's toes by stepping in and not like finding someone to ask if they want help first. And that's especially a problem for newcomers who are often don't really know anyone and therefore don't know who to ask or who they should talk to. And sometimes just don't know where to start. Which leads to the second reason, not knowing what to do or who to talk to. Like, okay, people are volunteering, they're asking for volunteers, what's that role mean? What do I do in that thing? What if I'm not qualified to do that thing? Which is often a problem for the Trojans, which I think is a Lockhart thing at the moment. Nighttime Trojan is literally have the phone near you and call our actual medics, St. John's volunteers, if anything happens. But a lot of people think, oh no, I don't have first aid training, or I don't have I'm not an EMT. What happens if something actually happens? I can't possibly do this. So volunteering is not actually as scary as it sometimes seems, but it can feel that way. And some people just wait to be asked because they don't want to intrude. And then if no one asks, they don't do it. So pitfalls of volunteering, burnout. Some people have found themselves in a position of everyone looking their way when something needs to be volunteered for. And everyone and other people not stepping up because they think, oh, this person has it handled. So having the group become overly reliant on the one person. Some of us genuinely struggle with saying no to things, even if we wanted to. Saying, I can't do that right now, but maybe ask me on the day, or I can step in on the day if there's anything, but I have too much going on, I can't take on this whole role. There is, of course, the whole dig a good hole, be handed a big shovel, popularized by Terry Pratchett's Granny Weatherwax. And again, leads back to the whole struggling to say no, which is a skill that I do encourage everyone to develop. The advantages of volunteering are that the society runs on volunteers. We are not paid for our work. We take a huge amount of people to actually run as smoothly as we do. A lot of that goes unnoticed. Having lots of volunteers means a lot less stress for seneschals or event stewards, who then don't have to find time to do 3 different things at once. It is a lot of fun. A lot of people tell me at festival and other events, why don't you take some time to have fun to yourself? And well, running gate means that I can talk to people without having to remember their names afterwards. It means I get to see a lot of Roving Constable means I get to stop in at campsites and say hi to everyone that I know without having to actually track them down. So this is my fun. Occasionally it leads to small children being aimed in my direction with Auntie Maui, sit down and play with me, because my SCA family plays dirty. Many hands make light work, so lots of volunteers means less stress on everyone. It's a good way to meet people without pressure. I've met a lot of people when I'm helping at Gate at Penzic, or at festival. It's a good way to just say, oh hey, haven't seen you in ages, hi, have fun. And then maybe I'll see them later in the event in passing, maybe I won't, but it's a good way to meet people and get to know people and make friends who also volunteer with things. And they may not always say it, but a lot of people think they're really awesome for giving up a free time to do this. So a bit of self-gratification there. So that took very little time. On to the group discussions. Please just unmute yourself or raise your hand in the chat to say, I'd like to ask a question. If you want to speak on here. So first question, what does volunteering mean to you?
Service, to give yourself.
Yep. In a broader context, is it a thing you do because there's a thing that needs to be done, or is it something you actually chat up? So from Dreefa, for me it's about making things happen that I want to see happen.
Service, because I like to give myself to the people who gave to me. So
yes.
It's not really paying back, it's more paying forward.
Yes, like that.
I would like to say I volunteer when I know I'm gonna have fun. Like
yeah.
if I'm doing a specific task, or if I'm working with great people, you know, that's the best for me, is when I know I'm going to have fun.
Mm. For those who couldn't see it, I have my Stop Me Before I Volunteer mug, Before I Volunteer Again mug next to me, so. Yep, Warwick, we'll see you later when you get back. Anyone else have thoughts on volunteering?
Just to keep things going.
Yep.
You know, especially in those situations like you were saying, nobody's sticking their hand up to volunteer. It's like somebody's got to do it.
Yep. I did. There was a reign where I did a lot of stunt lady in waiting. Like everyone had a rather large party the night before. I just staggered out of my tent to breakfast. And someone pokes their head in. Hey guys, the king and queen are on gate. Can someone please get out here? Get out here and give us a hand. A lot of the people there had just seen me doing ridiculous amounts of volunteering at Penzic weeks before, but picked up my plate, headed straight out. Got greeted with a, you're on for 1 hour, then we're making someone else come out and do it. which was very sweet of them, I thought. But yes, there's a lot of, especially during peak times like meal times. Everyone's having dinner, no one's doing the thing, so someone just has to say, hey guys, can you put a plate aside for me? And it's important work, but yes, there can be a lot of, well, we all have other things on at this time, no one's doing it, I may as well. Apologies for taking over a bit there. Okay, so if we want to move on to the next question. What are the signs for you that you're taking on too much? For me, it's things like I'm not looking forward to an event, which is incredibly rare. That can be a sign of stresses, not just volunteering too much, but too much stress in the rest of in my mundane life or work life, which honestly was the final 6 months of my previous job. It says a lot that I actually quit during a pandemic to find another job or to work for a different company. But for you, what are the signs that you think you're volunteering a bit too much and need to step back a bit?
That you start avoiding it.
It becomes a chore instead of something you enjoy.
Yep. Nest Ferturish, I probably mispronounced that, I apologize. Mentioned starting to slack off. Yes, that's also a thing. And I don't think slack off is a good term because you're taking on too much and you need to sort of step back a bit, and that's perfectly valid. Tarifa, not being able to do the things I was looking forward to, or when I start losing time and missing other things I wanted to do. Yes, very much so. It's a really important balance to balance volunteering for things with, okay, guys, at this point, I am not going to be available. I'm doing a thing I want to do. You will have to find someone else. Yeah, so being just exhausted, lack of energy, not looking forward to things. Boundaries and balance is a very good way of putting it. Halima Al-Rakasa, I think. I'm terrible with pronunciations. I apologize. But yes, that was a very good way to put it. Any other thoughts on the matter?
I've noticed that if I'm like reassuring myself, like, oh, this isn't that bad, or oh, you know, it may seem like a lot, but you can work through this. I've found that that's kind of an indicator for me.
Yes.
Especially when you've got a lot of other projects, your mundane life and the SCA going on at the same time. It's like, oh no, you just got to work through it. Just work through it. You know, you'll be fine. It's not that bad.
Yes, I had a massive guilt moment when everyone started talking about thank you to this person for running Bardic Circle or doing this thing to keep things running online or teaching this class. It's like, I want to teach classes, I want to be there, I want to attend, but essential worker, I can't. I cannot do all the things myself. And the guilt, and I felt bad for not participating, even though I knew rationally that there was no way I could have balanced both. So yes, it's hard to tell yourself, stop telling me if it's hard to tell yourself, stop telling my body everything's fine. I know it's not. And yes, the spoon ones. My pelican occasionally has to threaten to sit on us to stop us from volunteering for things. She hasn't actually done it yet, but part of the reason we all got taken on was this way I can order you to sit down and take a break occasionally. Yep, so Laird, I'm not sure that's how you say it, but that's a lot of how I feel. I don't feel like I can put it down, or like it's okay to put it down. Yes, that's the thing that a lot of the people who are best known for their service struggle with, I think. And it can be hard to tell yourself it's okay to take a break. But cultivating the ability to say no is very important in any aspect. Okay, so next question was, what kind of volunteering do you enjoy? This isn't really a debate so much as what sort of things do you enjoy, and maybe linking up with a couple of other people who enjoy the same thing. I tend to do a lot of gate duty at events and occasionally cooking or just running around and running errands. I've been a stunt lady in waiting a couple of times. But it's largely, I enjoy the background roles, and I have sworn of someone there to never be seneschal. Yep, to put it down, maybe you have to remember it's all volunteer. Someone either picks it up or it doesn't get done. If it's important, someone will step in. Yep, so, yes, so who likes to volunteer for what?
I'll volunteer for most any kind of heraldry stuff. It means that I get a chance to, get out there and cry the camp and find out who all's out there. Heralding the list means that I get to have that list side view of the tournament. So it, just kind of being aware of what's going on by doing the heraldry stuff.
That's one thing I'm going to miss about festival this year, the Herald Collective. There's always a bit of a funny spin on the morning announcements. Yep, so Aoife said, I'm new, so just volunteering for anything that I can do to help and learn. That's a great way to get your feet wet and learn what you like and don't like.
I find myself behind the thrones a lot. And that now that I'm stopping to think of it, I do a lot of stage management. And it may be that's why I'm comfortable there, because it's kind of the same thing, helping to keep things going and taking care of the people who are the faces of what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, that's me too.
Hardest part is keeping a straight face when you've got a particularly funny crown. Yep, so Halima said, I'm a numbers type, so they're exchequer a lot. Archery for balance. Drifa, I don't really like working door, but I will because it's one of those things they always need hand for. Best at organizing. So planning events, contest challenges, finding presenters of classes, and social media because mundane training. Excellent. It's always good to play to what strengths you have. Kelsey, just largely volunteering for behind the scenes stuff, such as moderating, I suppose. Thank you for that, by the way. Halima also mentioned helping with the cleanup afterwards. Yep. Yeah, so it's fun to just play around with what you enjoy, and then just some people settle into a single role, some people are a bit of a jack or Jill of all trades. Trash walk is my favorite. That's Team Bin Chicken in Lockhart, or technically Team Ibis, but Team Bin Chicken. Which is largely just the people that go around at festival, taking all the trash collection points to the actual big trash bin. Usually just a daily thing, but very, very vital. Nest is swiping those terms for Ethelmark. Have fun. But yes, so a lot of, there's a bit of a toss up between work that gets seen and work that doesn't get seen, but they're both very valid, and anyone who occasionally feels like all your work goes unnoticed, we notice, we just don't always say it. And I personally feel that people should thank their volunteers a lot more than they do, but that's just me. Bin chicken is this, Halima asked how bin chicken came about. Bin chicken is Aussie slang for ibis bird, because in rural areas, they're always picking over like trash that's left around. Aussie slang, Lockhart slang, whether it's Kiwi or Australian or random people who are insane and faffing about in the Antarctic research stations, it's always weird. Don't worry. Yes to expressing gratitude. I mentioned it briefly, feeling like in the lecture, feeling like no one notices what you're doing as a reason that people get burnt out and stop volunteering. But yes, it's like you don't really pause and say thanks for giving up a 2 or 3 hour slot to make sure things are running smoothly. Mostly because I think a lot of people assume that volunteers already know that they're appreciated, which they don't necessarily do. But yes, just hearing thank you for your assistance in making the event run can mean a lot more than a lot of people think. Roving Constable at festival, a lot of campsites say, are you keeping yourself fed and watered, especially around dinner time? I've missed dinner a couple of times because I was on Roving Constable and was just being fed either way by whatever campsite I wandered through. I'd be offered a sip of this or have a slice of whatever we just roasted up, and was well fed by the end of it without even going near the kitchen tent. So even just like little things of are you properly hydrated to your volunteer, or can I step in for a moment while someone runs to get drinks or anything like that. Just checking on your volunteers, make sure they're handling up and don't need a toilet break or 5 minutes themselves. Running a volunteer tent or gate or anything like that will teach you a lot about how vital bathroom breaks really are. The gratitude was shocking to me when I first noticed. I went years in the fringe, then I was noticed and everyone saying thank you and being so grateful. It completely changed my life and perspective. Yep. Aoife's moved to a phone. That's fine. But yes, so it's feeling appreciated is a vital part of stopping people from burning out. So next time you're at an event, just thank your volunteers. So we still have about half an hour. That's the end of my written down roundtable discussion questions. Anyone have any other Q&A questions they want to ask that I haven't covered? Yep. I don't know if that's a hand up from Jane or.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any advice for someone who's gone beyond that point of no return to come back from burnout?
I've been that person who's gone too far. What I found was helpful was I attended an event and didn't do anything. I largely stayed in the corner, just doing arts and stuff, doing some craft stuff because I'm not necessarily a people person, but I went to an event and I didn't do anything. And I noticed I was getting thoroughly bored. But just having that time to myself, and then I went back to volunteering, but at a very basic, this is the one thing I'm doing, and the rest of the event is for myself. Whether it's hanging out with friends, whether it's watching classes, whether it's just sitting in the corner doing my own thing. I don't know that there's any one way that will work for everyone, but finding what works for you, and just giving yourself putting a moratorium on your own activities, saying, okay, this time of the day is for volunteering, and then everything else is going to be my own thing. Sort of just figuring out a way to pace yourself and not take on too much. And as I've mentioned multiple times, the fine art of saying no, or at least not now. Time management. How do you balance when to make time for me at an event while working the event?
No, it's so hard.
It is very hard. I
can't even imagine myself telling someone I care about, no, I'm not going to help with that.
I think the important thing is so the basic rule of first aid, you cannot help others if you've injured yourself in the process. And I look at it from that angle. If I'm burnt out, then none of the volunteering I was planning on doing gets done. You can't pour from empty glass, well stated. If I run one shift and then go around telling everyone, hey, they need help on, my lord, you're sitting around staring blankly into nothingness. Would you like to go and do that at gate instead? Because at that point, in the middle of the day, later in the event, it's largely there's one person an hour and the rest of it's just hanging out with pals. Would you and your friends like to go up to gate and just hang out there in case someone needs to sign in? At gate in Penzic in the middle of the day in Peace Week or something, I bring a notebook or some craft or my on-the-go embroidery to gate and largely spend time doing that and chatting with people, because there's maybe one person in every half an hour. Maybe there's a flyer, but only one or two people actually needed to do the sign-in process, and everyone else is just treating as a hangout with friends time. And I suppose that's another thing you can do if you're feeling burnt out. Choose something that you know will be low energy. So if it's a thing between marshalling or running lists versus roving constable when everyone's going to be at war or at the war field, or just being the second person in a golf cart at Penzic. You're going around checking everything's running, but you're largely just sitting down and you're largely just sitting in the cart, driving around and largely relaxing. So just, if you're feeling like you're starting to burn out, choose something low energy. Something that you know will not have a lot of stress and will largely be just sitting around, decompressing and hanging with friends. Drifa, you've talked a lot about people not wanting to step on toes, advice for people who are already volunteering to find their own replacements. That's an interesting one. It can depend heavily on what you're looking for a replacement for. Like different roles will have very different requirements. With something like constable or hospitaller, it's just like, do you have storage space to keep all the loaner garb? Or do you know how to stare at people? Do you know how to count bodies versus count names on a sign-in sheet? When I was baronial constable, I had a thing of, if there were less names on the sheet than there were bodies in the hall, I'd call hold in the middle of a fight and tell everyone who hadn't signed in to go and do it. And I would wait until everyone was fighting, purely to be as inconvenient as possible, largely just to make it more convenient to sign in first. Because it is very much, if you're a baronial constable, it's very much a case of, are we going to get sued because this person didn't sign in before they armored up? I also started a thing of making tasty baked goods and keeping them next to the sign-in sheets. And you didn't get one until I saw your name on the sheet. So a bit of a carrot and stick approach. And if I had to ask more than 5 times in a session, then no one got anything next week, and everyone knew why. It took 2 years. It took the entirety of my term, but I had them nicely trained to sign in with been more prompting by the end of it. Constable is essentially the person who makes sure that keeps track of attendance numbers. If you're doing a thing that requires personal waivers, making sure those waivers have been signed. It's a bit like the gate position at events. You've made sure people have showed up, put their name on the paperwork before they do anything that could potentially result in injury or whatever else. Just to make sure that if they get food poisoning, we're covered. But the people in charge of participate at your own risk, I suppose. My household has a motto: service is love made visible. Yes, that's incredibly true. But also that taking care of ourselves is service to ourselves isn't taking care of ourselves. And again, you can't volunteer if you're burnt out, if you're too burnt out. So, but back to the previous question. I think once you've found the people, I don't really have much advice for finding the people in the first place. As Kingdom Constable, it's a lot of poking groups that I've never visited because they're on the other side of the continent, and saying, "Hey guys, do you have a constable? Do you have someone in mind?" A lot of it's coordinating with other people to see what do they like to do and are they interested in this thing. But like, once you have them, it's just reminding yourself that you have other people around you. Like when I was moving house, I could have, moving house didn't fall on the reporting month. But if I wind up having too much to do this month, I can always just poke my deputy and say, hey, can you just make sure can you just poke some people to make sure that they send in their reports, and then collect them, and then make sure that the Seneschal's reporting deputy gets all the things for this month. So it's just having knowing that you have someone and knowing that you can poke them and say, can you take care of this? I need some me time. Anyone else? Yep, or to not see through to the things through to the finish. Yep. So I suppose that depends on the magnitude of what you're doing. But yes, there have been people who've said, look, I've had an attack of life, I can't finish this thing that I signed up for. Whether that's you've had a family emergency, you're only halfway into your term as a baronial or kingdom officer, and you need to drop everything and deal with this family emergency, and you don't know when or if you'll be able to come back before the end of your term. There have been people who've either handed things over to a deputy temporarily, or have said, look, I can't finish my term, can we hold an emergency search for a replacement? And that's happened, and there's no shame in it. The term limits are only the ideal. We're aware that things happen and people need to stand in or people need to bow out early. there's no shame in saying, I can't do this, can someone else take it over? A position at an event can be harder, but this is why you should always have a deputy. I've been deputy for people who need me to do a thing. I've been deputy for people who've said, hey, the kitchen's run out of this, can you run down to the shops and grab it for them because we don't have enough hands? And I've done that. It's event planning, I think, should always include someone who is just the all-rounder step-in person. So if Gate needs a bathroom break, if the kitchens need someone to run to the shops, if anything really. But as I said, there's no shame in asking for help or saying, I can't do this. And then you know for next time, and we'll hopefully be able to either deal with it better or not deal with it at all by not putting your hand up in the first place, I suppose. Yep, anyone else? Questions, clarification? I think you're still muted. Lard, I think you're still on mute. I don't know if you're trying to say anything. No, you say truth, but it's easier said than done. But it's a lot of truth to digest. Yes, it took me a long time. I've been in the SCA for over a decade, and this is something I'm only recently sort of grasping. It can take some time to learn. It can take years or even longer. But I think the important things are just learning your limits and learning when and how to say no, which are not as easy as they sound with me speaking them out loud here. But those are the two important things, I think. If you take nothing else away, take away those two things. Just like, it's easier for me because I spend a lot of time self-monitoring my own health. Being autistic, I need to be very aware of when I'm hitting my limits to avoid a burnout or a meltdown or anything like that. So it can be quite, I have to be a lot more self-aware than a lot of other people. So it's easier for me probably on that count to be aware of when I'm about to hit my limits and when I just need to step away for 5 minutes and go have a nap or go lie down in my bunk room or just go and wrangle the SCA nibblings for a few minutes. Because I find that fun in small doses, and then I can give them back to their parents. So it's easier for me in many ways because I have to be so self-aware every moment of every day. But it can be a lot harder for other people who aren't used to that level of self-awareness. Yep. Aoife does the same with dogs in their group. That is also a very valid thing.
Did you need to switch, or did you want to switch? You're breaking up, so just talk. Sorry.
Yep. So you say, were you talking to your other people or?
Oh shoot, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was unmuted.
Quite all right, I was just double checking.
It is 10 till.
Yep. Okay, so we'll try and wrap this up. Any last questions, comments, things you want me to elaborate on more? If not, the fine art of saying no, it's hard. It's especially hard if you're saying no to friends. I get through it by reminding myself that they'll thank me later when they don't have me bowing out in the middle of an event because I'm too worn out. And speaking as a friend, sometimes it's better, you kind of have to start working with people you don't know especially well. So I try to tell myself I'm doing them a favor, because if I know I can't take it on and I will wind up bowing out because I'm too overwhelmed or exhausted, then I'm not actually helping anyone by saying yes. And I know it's not nearly that easy, especially if you've got more severe social anxiety, or if you're like, I was bullied a lot as a kid, so I felt a lot like I had to earn my place in the SCA because people were so nice to me. What if I say no and they stop liking me so much? It can be incredibly hard, especially if you come from a bully background. But if they're truly your friends, they will not mind that you have to take some time to yourself. My pelican had a family emergency in New Zealand and had to say, I can't cater for this event 2 days beforehand. And no one blamed her. She had to bow out. She had a family emergency. She had to deal with the other thing. Someone else stepped in. She handed over all the food, all the prep she'd already done to the person who was taking over, and jumped on a plane. So that's the thing that I keep in mind. Like, I haven't had to cancel anything for a family event or a family emergency yet, but there have been times I've just said, look, I cannot cope with this. I'm either too burned out from mundane work or other things. I need a break. I can't do it. And it's better to say that up front than it is to say a few days before the event when you've realized that, no, you've been hit with executive dysfunction and you can't do this. It's okay to call her friends and say, I've got some feast prep to do. Do you want to come and help me cut things? Or just, can you keep cutting things while I wash out my eyes because I can't see through the onion juice? Or do you have a spare pair of swim goggles I can put on while I'm chopping onions? Things like that. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to say no. And if you take nothing else away from anything I've just said, take those things. But yeah, so 5 minutes to go. Thank you all for coming. This is probably the most attended version of this class I've run yet.
Thank you.
It was lovely to meet you all.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone wants to talk
Thank you
anymore,
so
or-
much for this class. Before we all time out, thank you. This was really helpful. I appreciated it.
It's largely things that I wish I'd known when I started volunteering, but yes, it can be incredibly helpful just to know that someone else has been there and has felt the same way. And yes, I saw the thank yous in the comments. That's very appreciated. And yes, thank you volunteers, thank you other teachers.